Hola, buenas tardes. Empezamos la actividad que tenemos programada para hoy. Esta actividad ha sido organizada por Granada Laica y por la comisión promotora del seminario Galileo Galilei de la Universidad de Granada. Yo estoy aquí en la mesa en nombre del seminario Galileo Galilei, de la comisión promotora todavía. Estamos esperando a unos trámites burocráticos que se dilatan ya más de un año y a ver si el rector se decide a firmar el papelito. Y sin más, queremos coger y presentar esta tarde la actividad que tenemos de una conferencia titulada El laicismo y el delito de blasfemia, que impartirá Sanal Edamaruku y que presentará Isaías Martínez, que es miembro de Granada Laica, y que le doy ya la palabra, sí, para no dilatar más, porque tenemos hasta las 8:15 no más, así que vamos a procurar ser rápido.
Bueno, efectivamente el tiempo que tenemos es escaso. Yo vengo en representación de Granada Laica y voy a presentarlo y a decir un poco su currículum. ¿Ahora se oye?
Dale a Tor.
¿A Tor?
El botón azul grande.
¿Aquí?
No. Es a él. Dale al botón.
¿Ahora?
No, se tiene
¿Cuándo?
Ahora.
Ahora sí, ¿no? Vale, perfecto. Bueno, pues entonces lo repito. Entonces, yo estoy aquí en representación de Granada Laica y voy a presentar un poco su currículum y escuetamente decir la razón por la que está aquí. Entonces, él ya sabéis, se llama Sanal Edamaruku. Entonces nació en una familia y donde no fue adoctrinado en ningún tipo de religión. Se hizo activista contra las creencias y la superstición a la edad de 15 años y después ahora mismo fue secretario general de la Asociación Racionalista India y es presidente de esta asociación desde el 2005. Esta asociación fue fundada en 1930 y tiene aproximadamente 100.000 miembros, que no está mal, y aproximadamente 200 ramas. Su educación tiene una licenciatura en Relaciones Diplomáticas, también ha hecho Filosofía y Ciencia y un doctorado en Relaciones Internacionales. Y, en resumidas cuentas, una persona normal hasta que dio con un milagro. Entonces, ocurrió que un Cristo de esta zona pues sudaba sangre. Entonces, de este líquido que sudaba este Cristo incluso le daban a beber a los creyentes, con lo que rápidamente tuvo muchos creyentes en el milagro y finalmente él descubrió que lo que ocurría es que había una especie de tuberías de cloaca que estaban cayendo gotas de agua mezcladas con óxidos y era la sangre de Cristo, o sea que le estaban dando a la gente a beber caca. Resumidas cuentas, que el hecho de que lo dijera fue denunciado por aproximadamente 70 comisarías por decir que este Cristo que era falso. Entonces los obispos católicos influyeron para que lo metieran en prisión y que fuera acusado de blasfemia, que la blasfemia es un delito que existe en la India y que aquí en España, como ya sabéis, pues tenemos más suerte, porque según por una casualidad de esas de la vida, tengo aquí el Código Penal Español y en su artículo 525 dice: incurrirán en la pena de multa de 8 a 12 meses los que para ofender los sentimientos de los miembros de una confesión religiosa hagan públicamente, de palabra, por escrito o mediante cualquier tipo de documento, escarnio de sus dogmas, creencias, ritos o ceremonias, o vejen también públicamente a quienes las profesen o practiquen. Es decir, que cualquier crítica que se haga de la religión aquí en España también está penado como en la India, pero hay una diferencia. En la India son 3 años de prisión, que es lo que le pusieron a él. Aquí es solamente 1 año de prisión. Tenemos más suerte. Lo único que ocurre es que aquí parece que se hace un poco la vista gorda, ¿no? O por lo menos ese poder que puede venir en cualquier momento, que tiene la Iglesia Católica de meternos en la cárcel, menos más que nos siguen todavía creyendo que la Tierra era plana, porque fijaros el problema que tendríamos con la ciencia, porque todo el que dijera que no, que es redonda, pues lo meterían en la cárcel. Porque no se puede, según este artículo que viene en el Código Penal Español actual, pues no se puede criticar ningún tipo de pensamiento, sino que si es una creencia, pues ya está, hay que aceptarlo como tal. Bueno, como no quiero ya alargar más, pues le voy a dar la palabra para que él cuente pues lo que le ha pasado y cómo finalmente logró escapar a Finlandia de una manera con bastante dificultad, y ahora mismo pues está siendo perseguido en su país, pues por eso, por la cuestión de los milagros. Aquí en Granada ya sabéis que nunca pasan estas cosas. No sé si os acordáis en San Juan de Dios cuando la Virgen lloraba, creo que lloraba sangre, ¿no? Y tuvo el obispo hasta cerrar la iglesia porque hubo tal cantidad de personal que llegó a intentar meterse en la iglesia que casi la explotan de la presión. Pues eso, que las cosas estas que pasan en la India, que no pasan en España. Le doy la palabra sin más. You can continue talking.
I'm so sorry that I am not speaking in your wonderful language, and I'm forced to speak in English because I am ignorant about Spanish language, and so sorry for that. The organization that I come from is known as Indian Rationalist Association. This organization was founded in 1930 with less than 30 members. 29 members only we had in the beginning, in 1930. And of course, even this small organization that was meant for discussions and some seminars and all these kind of things got defunct, because the Indian independence struggle was coming up around this time. In 1947, India got independence, and meantime, the organization was non-existent because everybody was involved in the independence struggle only. It got revived in 1949 again in the present format. This time we had something like 80 members at that time. Now we have more than 100,000 members, 200 branches, a rationalist center in Delhi, a publishing house that has published 3,000 titles. I mean, we are quite a powerful organization in the country. But this is a long saga, a long story of, a lot of work and a lot of struggles of a lot of people, of generations in fact. But things were very, very different. India now, when you look at India, there are two Indias normally you see. A modern India, civilized, a lot of software engineers are going all around the world. The Indian economy is seen as one of the most aggressively growing economy. The situation in Spain, I know at this moment, but the Indian situation is slightly different now. The economy is growing very fast, 7% growth. There's a large middle class who has enormous buying power, and there are no products in India because the population is so big, and suddenly there is a lot of wealth in India. No one knows whether it's a real bubble or real economic growth, but there is a lot of international companies now coming to India, and India is seen as a modern, developing, scientific-oriented country at one side, and on the other side, there is another India, which is medieval, primitive, superstitious, pulling it back, people believing in witchcraft, and most of the people living in fear of the supernatural. These two Indias are in permanent conflict. But in this conflict, there are sometimes very hard stories. Sorry for the translators, I didn't discuss this part of the story, but I tell with a small story. That happened something like some 5-6 years after the re-establishment of our organization. One story that I heard from my childhood, that's about a family. Now, for example, in India, even now, it's difficult if you marry from a different caste or religion. There's a lot of honor killing still happening in India. 90% of the Indian marriages are arranged marriages. And more than 70% of the Indian women are married below the age of 18. There are still child marriages. The parents decide whom you should marry, the caste, religion, and everything controls everything. But this story that I was telling is that happened some decades beforehand. This is a story very famous in our country, therefore I tell this story because it's very important, I think. Two youngsters, they have been studying together and they decide to marry each other despite the family's objections, because they decided to be together. They thought of having their life in their way. And of course, the lady was not a Christian and the guy was a Christian, and it was very difficult because the family wanted a conversion and the lady refused to do it. And when the lady was pregnant, the family calls them back from their rented apartments to join them in the ancestral home. But when the labor begins, they make a pressure. This is still an issue in our country, conversion. They insist on conversion. That she should now, this moment, convert, or they would not take her to a hospital. The labor pain has begun. Imagine a situation like that, and the lady cries with pain because the labor pain has started and there is no way, and the family insist on this thing because the family had bishops and priests and other people, and they wanted the lady to convert. So the couple decides not to succumb, not to surrender. They decide, okay, then the family says, if you cannot convert now, go out of the house. It's impossible because the lady is pregnant and labor pain is already there. But they decide to go out and walk out in a rainy day. And they walk and walk. And on way, placenta breaks and waters come. And they still walk because they refuse to convert. There is no way, and the nearest place they could go would be something like 12 kilometers away, and the last bus has gone, night, no street lights, and they walk and walk. And before reaching the lady's house, she falls down just outside the house and delivers a child in the rain, in muddy waters, without any doctor or any help. And such a child would not survive. It will die. It's very clear. But it survived. And that was me. So the struggle against forced religious indoctrination and conversion continues. It's just one example only. The story I've been hearing from my childhood because, the story was written, by mother, which got an Academy Award later. And this period is very important in India. That's why this story I told. Because India, in 1947, when India got independence, we got a wonderful constitution. One of the best constitutions possible in the world. Because the constitution was written by a very elite person, namely Dr. B.R. Ambedkar, drafted by him. And there was an elected constituent assembly reading it, comparing it with all best constitutions in the world. Freedom of speech was guaranteed. Freedom of speech, expression, belief, faith and worship is guaranteed. There is an absolute guarantee of free speech. And it's justiciable, and judiciary, executive and legislature are absolutely separated. Wonderful constitution, I would say. One of the best constitutions possible. And later, this constitution got amended with a new clause. It said that there is a fundamental duty also for all Indian citizens. And you know what's the fundamental duty of all Indian citizens as per the constitution? To develop scientific temper. Imagine, that's a constitution. To develop critical inquiry, spirit of inquiry, spirit of reform. That's the duty of all Indian citizens as per this constitution. But parallelly, like the Indian situation, we have another penal code which is made in 1860, where if you criticize religion, you would go for earlier life imprisonment, now 3 years imprisonment. If you are gay, you can get life imprisonment. A lot of things are of 1860s laws are still there. But the only guarantee is that if any clause in this constitution, is penal code, is violative of the constitution, you can have a remedy to get it null and void. That's where we are trying. But the same period, what I've been speaking, when this, after this constitution came, after this kind of sufferings people had to face because of their, conscience and standing on the conscience, India was undergoing a big change at that time. Most of, people in Western Europe think of India with two different phases. One, the face of the poverty in India, which is shown in televisions, hungry children or something like that, and the flying fakirs and the holy men and gurus. These are the two faces of India that's familiar here. But both are not correct. India in 1950s was a very poor country because we didn't have enough wheat and rice. We have 1.2 billion population now, 1/6 of the entire global population is India. And still growing. Next 20 years we are still, we'll be having quite a lot of people. Then only it will stand still and come down. 1950s we didn't have wheat. We had to wait for American ships to come or Australian ships to come for wheat for Indian people. And it was a very difficult situation. But 1960s, we found science and technology working. Really effective. Because we have a dramatic change in India in 1960s, which we call the Green Revolution of India. Followed was a white revolution, which is a dairy revolution. But the Green Revolution was so dramatic that we have increased our food production 200 times. 200 times. And irrigation has been developed, seed development has been very modernized, the agriculture university has been very actively functioning, water management, electricity production, like equitable distribution of electricity, a lot of things work so well, and wheat and rice we started producing quite a lot. Or communication, started developing in 1960s. We started sending our satellites in late 1960s. Now India has one of the most developed satellite system. Mobile phones are so cheap and reachable by everybody. Televisions there are shanties still in urban slums, but even there we have televisions, color televisions. So it's a very ironical situation. But imagine this India, when it was so aggressively growing at that site, we have another parallel structure, like the holy men. They emerged in the same period, 1960s. This gentleman is known as Maharshi Mahesh Yogi. Very famous in Western world especially, not because of what he did, but because of the kind of devotees he had. For example, the Beatles. And it worked so well, and he was very successfully selling the Indian image outside like flying. The Indian technique of flying on the air is what he tried to sell. There were a lot of buyers for this thing. Everywhere in Europe. This is from a brochure of this Mahesh Yogi, where people are really flying. And the Switzerland flying school, where students are flying. You know what it was actually is very well known later. They would all sit on a spring mattress and hop and hop and hop. When they go up, the cameras put down, would take a photograph. Next moment they fall down with nose hitting on the earth, but nobody will photograph that. But this was sold so effectively. For studying, for one session of yogic flying, you have to pay, in 1960s, $2,500. And people were in queue, advance booking for several years. And of course, people got really, a feeling that they have been flying. That is how it worked very well. The trick was very simple. He gave something like which we call in India prasad, an offering which any temple would give. First, some eatery with a little sweet in that thing. And after that thing, they are sent for flying. Of course, we now know that, it's analyzed later, it had a little hashish in that thing. People got really high and they felt, they would be flying. But still more easy things were there. They would be taken to a small dark room where there is not much ventilation available, and they are asked to sit on a lotus position, and they will be given a special mantra for each person. Everybody get a special mantra. One of the critics who went there and did this thing, he got a mantra which he published later. It is written Om Hreem Kreem. Doesn't mean anything. Just 3 words. But these persons are asked to repeat it 1,000,000 times. Sitting in a dark room, all alone, with less oxygen, and if you repeat with closed eyes like that, you can fantasize anything in the world. Many people really felt that they were flying. And also, when there is, scientifically also, when there is lack of oxygen in our blood stream, the supply of oxygen to the brain is reduced. And when the oxygen supply to the brain is reduced, you are absolutely prone to hallucinogenic situation. You can have hallucinations exactly as you want. Many people felt that they are going up and looking down the city, and people really felt like that. But if somebody else see it from outside, they're just sitting there only. But for them, they were flying. And it worked very well, and more people joined, and Mahesh Yogi got a lot of money. He made his own centers in Amsterdam, and in many European cities he had his own offices and huge printing houses and publishing houses, everything he had. But other people also. 1970s, India got the televisions. First time the national television comes with the government-owned television reaching everywhere. But this gentleman, whose name is Dhirendra Brahmachari, he was the yogic teacher of the then Prime Minister of India, Indira Gandhi. And he appeared every day morning, 7 to 8, 1 whole hour, every day morning he was on the Indian television. And televisions are very popular from that time onwards. It's just like a window in your drawing room, all the time running. And he became so popular.
Wait a little because the translation is not working now. I don't know what happened. Yeah, ahora? Now it's ready. You can continue it. But repeat the last thing you were saying, okay?
Dhirendra Brahmachari, this gentleman, was the yogic teacher of the then Prime Minister, Indira Gandhi. While Mahesh Yogi, who would be claiming about levitation and flying, you know what he claimed? He claimed that he was promoting levitation and yogic flying for global peace. And he actually claimed that when he does that thing, when people levitate, there's a positive vibrations going immediately, and these positive vibrations would influence global peace, and we would have peace. Well, this is all supposed to be an Indian mechanism, but in 1962, India had a war with China. We didn't have peace, but war. 1964, a war with Pakistan. Again in 1970, another war with Pakistan. So there was no peace coming, but war only. But this gentleman, Dhirendra Brahmachari, would not speak about peace because he himself had a gun factory. He owned a gun factory. And of course, he was advocating yogic techniques for all your problems and ailments and everything. And of course, a lot of people started following yoga as an absolute cure for everything. It became part of the Hindu belief system during this time. But he died later on an air crash because he had a private small aeroplane wherein he has been stuffing a lot of ammunition unauthorized, and it got problem and it blasted, and he also gone with that thing. But more people. Chandra Swami. Chandra Swami was the astrologer official of the Science and Technology Minister of India. And later this person became the Minister for Education. And later he became the Prime Minister of India, P.V. Narasimha Rao. And Chandra Swami continued as the astrologer of the Prime Minister. But the proximity to the Prime Minister, he tried to sell to the businessmen, telling that, okay, I am very close with the Prime Minister, I would help you get licenses and all. And somehow, maybe it worked or not, no one knows. But some got in real trouble, some people complained, and he would be arrested later. Here is when he was arrested. But before the arrest, 3-4 days before that, he announced that if I am questioned or if I am arrested, I would invoke the god Ganesh. God Ganesh is a very important god in India. The elephant-faced god. Very popular nowadays. Recently, he is very, very popular because, since the entrepreneurship has developed, the Ganesh god is the obstacle clearer. If you have any obstacle on your way, problem or in the business or work or anything, you have to break a coconut to please the guy, and then the obstacles are over. But it's damn serious for many people. Like, for example, Indian Space Research Institute, when they launch a satellite, before sending the rocket, the chief of Indian Space Research Institute would pray to Lord Ganesh, and the time, of course, is fixed by an astrologer, an auspicious time for launching, and he breaks a coconut so that there are no obstacles. But most of the time, the satellites went up very well and did not come down because, not because of the elephant god helping, but because the Indian scientists have been quite good. But sometimes, despite the coconut, the rockets came down also. But this particular god, the Indian mythology is very interesting. Very colorful mythology India has. This god got his elephant head. I'm not making joke at the whole thing, but the real Indian mythology says there is one god, namely Shiva. There are 3,000 Hindu gods. For every purpose, there is one special god. For destruction, there is a god, that is Shiva. He has an eye here, third eye. When he opens that thing, you have tornado or tsunami or earthquake or volcano or everything would happen. And he is very fast angry. And one day he got angry with his son, because son said something which he did not like. And he was so angry that he simply chopped off his head and put on the fire. The guy has gone. But later he found that what the son said was correct and there was no reason to be angry. But then what will he do? The head is gone. Then he looked for a head and found an elephant running there, caught the elephant, cut off the head and stitched on the son's body. Therefore he became the elephant-faced god. But it's taken damn serious by people, and the elephant god does not travel on a horse or chariot or anything. It travels on a mouse. And I know how seriously people take such a thing. When a mouse is caught in India, because we have a lot of mouse and rat in India, Indian mouse traps don't kill mouse. It's catch them very carefully only, without any hurt. And my neighbor, for example, I know how he does it. When he gets a mouse, I've seen him taking the mouse out on the balcony. Then he would fold the hand and say, "I'm so sorry." And then he tries to feed some milk to the mouse. And then, of course, the mouse is never killed or destroyed. The mouse is taken to the garden or the park and opened and says sorry once again, and it's released. So that is how the mindset of India works. But the elephant god's miracle, which Chandraswami said, was a different one. He said the miracle is going to happen. And it happened. 1995 September 24. I remember the date very well. The entire country's temples, which had elephant god, started drinking milk. Because people have been bringing spoonful of milk, and then the moment it touches the lip of the elephant statue or the face of Ganesh, the milk would just disappear. It simply sucked up. And it's not a joke. I have seen it myself. It worked. Because I've been invited by a television to see this thing. I've gone there, and there was a huge queue of maybe half a kilometer, and the people have been giving spoonful of milk, and the milk just vanished. And I didn't know what was exactly happening. Of course, I know that the elephant would not drink milk, but how exactly this would happen was a very, strange thing for me. So I went back to my office. I remember how it was a very interesting day. I had a small statue bust of Jawaharlal Nehru, the first Prime Minister of India. He's a very progressive, scientific, rationalist person. I like him very much. So therefore, from my student time, I had a bust of Nehru on my cupboard. So I took Nehru's bust on my table, put him on a little plate, and it was very famous that Nehru liked coffee. So I thought, Nehru should be given some coffee and see if he would drink it. So we poured some coffee over the head of Nehru, and in a spoon full of coffee was fed to Nehru's statue. To my surprise, Nehru drank coffee. So then I thought, still, we have 3-4 people there. We thought we should try it with Gandhi, Mahatma Gandhi. Gandhi would not drink coffee or tea or anything. He was so teetotaler. When he was a student, he ate some meat and he cried the whole night because he thought the animal is crying from his stomach. And he would not even drink milk of cow because that's meant for the calf. So what about giving some beer to Gandhi? Was an idea. So we looked for some beer, and there was some, and of course Gandhi's statue was borrowed from the neighbor, and in a spoon some beer was fed to Gandhi. Gandhi drank beer too. So it was very clear that any statue, any day, anywhere in the world, would give an impression of drinking any liquid if it's in a particular format. The format is very simple, that when any liquid is put on a spoon, when it is full and not falling down, it's in a curved situation. It's not a surface tension. If it's full, the surface is like this, and the surface tension will break when you touch it at any point. Then it drains out. But when the statue, which is wet, is touched by the spoon, which has full of milk, the surface tension breaks at that point, and a siphoning begins on that point. It simply drains to the statue only, over the body only. Because Ganesh has a huge, sumptuous body, it simply flows over the body only, it doesn't go inside. Then we looked at the floor, and it was all full of milk, and back on the drainage, it was running with full of milk only. And it was very clear. Then that was the night we understood that the rationalists have a lot of power. Because this miracle was so effective, in 1 million temples it was happening. But the one night, we summoned the entire effective rationalists in different parts of the country over the phone and explained them what was happening and how they have to talk in the televisions, in the regional televisions. We have 29 different languages in India and television channels in all different languages. And all of our people spoke in television channels. I spoke in the national television in Delhi, and we did not make joke with Nehru and Gandhi this time, but took a real Ganesh statue and first fed with milk, then with the pigmented colored milk, and shown how it was going through the body. And the television campaign was so successful, and the miracle that shook the country simply ended with one television program. We realized that we have a lot of power, because a wave of miracle we just caught and stopped. It was in fact invoked by Chandra Swami to protect himself, but the miracle went out of his hand. It went in huge dimensions, and wherever Indians were there, they heard the story, and they all tried, because when in Indian morning, it's already midnight in UK, and when you have noon, it's early morning in UK. When you have evening, it's early morning in America. So when at India, when the miracle was stopped, in American Indian temples, the miracle has just begun only. So communication was very slow at that time, but the miracle reached everywhere in India, everywhere in the world where Ganesh God was worshipped. But that's a god which does not answer your prayers, because Ganesh god or any other god, normally that's a special problem in India. Where real gods are existing. A lot of people who claim that they are gods. It's something like, how people go for such thing is also discussed nowadays. When you pray, it's like a telephonic call where you keep on talking and talking and there is nobody on the other side answering it. But the godmen answer your questions. They say solutions. And they laugh at you, smile at you, and shake hand with you, and receive your donations. And this god wrote a book. And in the book, one of the chapters begin with a sentence, I am the god, I created this universe. He created this universe. And it was taken damn serious by a lot of people. See the congregations he had. But not only. He was also, of course, the god has been accused of a lot of things, including pedophile. London Telegraph published a series of stories of victims, mainly his disciples, young children of 10 years to 80 years or something like that. He abused them, but most of them did not speak about it. But when they grew up, some of them spoke out, which included a famous Swedish television star and a lot of other people. Telegraph published a series of stories. India Today published a series of stories. BBC made a documentary, namely The Secret Swami. Danish television they made a documentary, namely Seduced by Sai Baba. Despite all these things, the god continued very powerful by, he just moved his hand like this in front of everybody and closed the hand and comes holy ash. Or he just moved the hand, then would appear a ring or chain, then he would give it to his rich disciples. Televisions quote it. We know how it is done. The holy ash production is trained by rationalists to hundreds of people. All the youngsters in our organization know how to produce holy ash and they show it. But despite all these things, the kind of people here, this is Adal Bihari Vajpayee. Vajpayee is at the time when he was folding his hands in front of the God man, he was the Prime Minister of India, the Premier of India. And here is a person, Chandrababu Naidu. He was the Chief Minister of Andhra Pradesh state where this God man was living. The God had a lot of money, quite a lot of money. He owned his own international airport. He owned his own railway station. He owned his own cricket stadium because he was a fan of cricket. All the cricketers he would pay and they would just come and play for him. And he had a university in his own name, so many colleges, hospitals, huge structures. And when he died, when his private room was opened, and it was found that the roof of the house, of the room, was studded with pure diamonds and very expensive pearls. And his bed was made of not gold plated, it was solid gold. And under the bed, he had around 8 tons of gold sheets kept there for emergencies, of course. And in his shelves, currency notes worth quite a lot of money. And God had a big organization, and God himself signed his checks. But when he died, this was his dead body here. Sitting here is the present Prime Minister of India, Manmohan Singh. And sitting here is a lady, namely Sonia Gandhi. Sonia Gandhi is the president of the Congress party that rules India. But not only, she is the widow of a former Prime Minister of India and a very powerful lady who actually controls Indian political system. And the Prime Minister is generally considered to be a puppet only. It's well known in India. Because it was she who was elected, but there was a public cry against being she a Roman Catholic born in Italy and just came to India by marriage only. Leading the country was opposed by a lot of people. So she did not take up the power and allowed somebody else to be in power and controls the country. She sits here. The body was covered with a national flag later, and the day of his burial was a national holiday. And of course, he had very strong supporters earlier. This is Abdul Kalam, a former president of India, but not just a president of India, he was a scientist, a space scientist, astrophysicist. He was a professor of aerospace engineering, first Chancellor of Space Science and Technology, 11th President of India, and Bharat Ratna. Bharat Ratna is the highest civilian award that one would get. But this particular event is happening when Sai Baba had his 80th birthday. The scientist president writes a poetry, bad poetry of course, and in the poetry it says that earth is a pearl, so beautiful in solar system, and it's blessed because Satya Sai Baba is born there. And that's the situation that we are facing. Science and technology at one side very successful, and the very same people who are in control of science and technology are the advocates of superstition. And common man is in a real crisis. They do not know what to do. That's where we found our role. There is another person named Acharam Bapu, very powerful holy man. He runs nearly 200 schools. But as per the Indian original religious texts, how the holy man would get power. One way is meditation for a long time. Another way would be special preparations and special magical structures. One of them included a kind of a special preparation which includes the liver of a young boy between 7 and 9 years, mainly to destroy your enemies. A special magic is there. And this guy, it's generally believed that a lot of boys were dead in his hostel, and the bodies were buried without a post-mortem. It was a huge public complaint, and post-mortem was done, the bodies were dug up, and then it was found that the livers were missing. Means he was kidnapping his own students from his own school and killing them to take the liver for black magic for businessmen. And such a person, there is huge opposition going on, sitting with the Prime Minister. Or a person who has raped officially, 180 persons have complained that he raped them, young person. Maybe many more did not even speak about that thing. He claimed that he was God, and those people believed were trapped into a situation like that. Or the hugging saint. She was all around in Europe. Every year she comes to Europe, and all her money comes from Europe only. Her trademark blessing is just embracing you. She is known as the hugging saint. Must be known. In Finland I heard that last year when she visited, there was a queue very long to get hugged by her. But in India we know that she is a person who is just an exploiter. Because when the tsunami was affected India's coast, she collected a lot of money internationally, and the money was never reaching the victims, but she siphoned off the money. There was a charge against her. Last year her foreign donation was stopped by government of India. So of course when she had hospitals, the Prime Minister of India went there and all, but now she is under scrutiny. But a lot of devotees all around the world feel that it's something very special that a woman heading a religion, and she just hugs you so closely, and that's something very important. And the feel-good atmosphere is so special that people are giving away money like anything. Some people sell off their entire property from Germany and Britain and all, and give to her, and would simply go like that. Another holy man, Sri Ravi Shankar, he teaches how to breathe. The breathing is sold, like how to breathe. You all are breathing not in a correct way, and he knows how to breathe properly, and that's an ancient Indian religious text, and he sells it for a price. Of course, a special breathing technique that he only knows now, is patented, and it has a trademark registered also. And to breathe that way, we have to pay money. And people buy it. The technique to breathe. And he, of course, sits with the Home Minister of India, L.K. Advani. And here is another holy man, Baba Ramdev. Baba Ramdev, I sometimes very proudly say in articles that, well, I can attend 200 television programs on a year, and absolutely not bought television program, but I'm invited because I'm liked by the people, and my programs are seen by people, and it's true that on an average, I'm in 200 television programs every year. But that's just nothing. Baba Ramdev appears on 23 television channels every day morning, both time. He has his own 2 television channels. And every day morning, he is on the televisions. And then, advocates very special things. Like this is one very famous thing that he says. This is a gesture that he found, that one has to hold like this so strongly for 1 hour every day morning. Then you don't get old. And people believe it. Or you have to rub your fingers like this. Then you don't get grey. And go to any metro in the morning in New Delhi, you see a lot of middle-aged people sitting and rubbing and rubbing. Yeah. But not at that level. He makes very, very dangerous claims. For example, he says that a certain yoga and some special mantra would protect you from HIV virus. People believe it. Or from H1N1 virus was in circulation, the swine flu. Everybody was protecting their, sneezing and coughing and all. He said nothing doing. That's not necessary. All you have to do is to just eat a special leaf and chant a mantra. And Delhi government, next day, started distributing this leaf free of cost to people. And the Guru tells how, special protection against ailments, but it's responded so well. Look at the youngsters doing it. Everywhere you see people imitating such things. And of course, he got a lot of money. This is from a brochure of him. He recently purchased an island in Scotland and started a new special program for yogic weight reduction for a huge price. And this is from the brochure. All you have to do is pay some money, go there for some days, and stand, remain in a position like this for some hours every day. Done. And your weight is reduced. And of course, you get a mantra also. But other people are very powerful. These are very powerful holy men. He says that everybody does things for global peace only, nothing less. And he gets buried under the earth or sit under water for global peace. Why they do it is, when they claim that they can sit under water for 4 days or get buried and not dying and they can come out, many people would think that they have a lot of power. So the people who think that they have magical powers are willing to pay huge amounts to them, especially by the new business community in India, not for their success, but for the elimination of the opponent, most of the time. So these people try to show that they are powerful, but here this guy is caught red-handed because this is a corrugated sheet here, and when he claimed that he was buried under the earth, I went with the television team into the night and waited and found that there was a little corrugated sheet and he's actually not sitting buried, and we by force removed this thing and found that he's sitting like this. He was just sitting comfortably down there, and there was no burial or anything. And of course, before that he claimed that he was remaining under water for some days. And that time we found that the water was actually not going in the room there, but it's connected through a hose and going out. It was not shown to the public because once you sit under this thing, it's all covered. You cannot see, like a magic trick. Of course, I found it at that time, And I said that, he's not sitting underwater. I know because I know the workers and I talked to them. And of course, he came out after the fourth day or something like that, came to the stage and shouted that, the rationalists are against me. They do not know that, people can remain 9 months in water, in uterus, without dying. And I've just been 4 days only. Such a funny argument. But of course, I could show the journalists how he's actually doing this thing, because the hose is connected and how water is going, and he's not actually sitting in water. So then he shouts to, he sees me explaining this thing. He said, look at the rationalist, kill him. I was not popular at that time, like now. I could just go into the crowd and vanish very easily into a car and go to the press club and made a press conference. Now I invited him to come for sitting in water for 40 minutes, not 4 days, but in a glass chamber. But if he can remain in 40 minutes, we all can become his disciples rest of the life, if he survives. And of course, he did not come to the press club, vanished from the city, and ditched this technique in another place. There also we quote. Now he has gone from India and lives in Japan. There he has a lot of devotees. But, it's like Hydra. More and more people come out again and again. This is a holy man, very popular last few years. He suddenly came, some people bring him up and say that he has yogic powers and he don't eat food or drink water. And, it's taken damn serious. Something from the Second World War's beginning time, he didn't eat any food or drink water, imagine. Why? Because meditation works very well, and it's because of that thing. And he's taken damn serious by Government of India, especially the Defence Research Institute, and gave a huge amount of money to research how he does it. Not if he does it, but how he does it. And we countered it. I insisted that I should be in the investigating team, and he was being watched and this and that, and the investigation team, I was included officially, but when I actually go there, I'm not allowed. But we found so many records. Like there was the first medical test, there was urine in his bladder. Second test, the urine has vanished. So where did the urine come from if you don't drink water? Or where did the urine vanish if you did not urinate? So the head of the medical department in the hospital where he's in investigation says that he has a special yogic technique to recycle the urine into the body. So what is that? It's absolute absurd idea. You cannot do that thing. Or nobody can survive without food more than 40-50 days. But you have to drink saline water. And without water, you cannot go beyond 10 days. Your kidneys will be over by that thing. This is absolute basic anatomical information, but if somebody can do this thing, the whole anatomical knowledge that we have is baseless. But Government of India, I've been challenging him in the television programs, in 5-6 channels I've been challenging him. But the Defence Research Department's chief allotted a huge sum to study about this thing. You know why? If this meditation technique is understood properly, we can sell it to NASA, and because the astronauts going up need not take water and food, and that would be saving a lot of money, and they would buy it. And NASA itself is financing it, was another news first, and NASA refused, we didn't do it. And but the Defense Department paid more than $80 million worth money for researching on this thing. And their idea was, if this technique is studied, in Indian borders, in Himalayan mountains, there are a lot of soldiers, in very difficult terrains. And food is supplied them with helicopters every day. It's a very difficult task, very expensive. So if all the soldiers stranded there are trained with meditation, then we need not supply food anymore or water. That was, it was taken seriously like that. Or we could sell this idea in poor areas that people can be trained to meditate. That was the idea that it developed at that time. Anyway, we asked for a report about the result. So we got an answer. There is an Information Technology Act in India, but the Defense Department is excluded of that thing. So we don't get an answer why the money was spent and how it was spent. comes from an idea that people can live with the sunlight's energy. This guy has started it, but of course he was late. He was very popular in 1970s with this idea that he can take energy straight from the sun. But the people have forgotten him. 1980s, we caught him in a restaurant eating some food and having some beer, and photographed him and exposed. And new gods come, every day. This guy is a new form of Indian gods. He is known as the Nirmal Baba. And he says a special kind of blessing he gives because he has a third eye of knowledge. God is in him. And in the Darbar, that's in the assembly where you pay a lot of money to have an assembly with him. He simply asks, people are telling, oh, my business is in trouble, there is no income coming, or I don't have a job now, I lost my job. He said, some simple answers he has. That's how the gurus normally work also. He says, what jacket you are wearing, a leather jacket or a woolen jacket? He would say, woolen jacket. Okay, go for a leather jacket. Blessing will come. Or some person would say that my business is in trouble. He said, what's the color of your belt? He would say, brown. Okay, go for black. Done. Or a lady would say that I am not conceiving after 15 years of marriage. Then he asked, do you eat samosas? Samosa is an Indian eatery, a fine, tasty snack. And if you eat samosas, what kind of chutney you would eat along with that thing? There are two kind of chutneys along with that thing, red and green. So green or red? She would say green. Okay, go for red chutney and you'll be pregnant. And people believe such things. And suppose most of these things are yes or no simple questions. Sometimes your business is again successful. Sometimes you get a job after that. And once the blessing really comes like that, then you have to pay dashwanti to him. Means 1/10 of your entire earning, every month you have to deposit in his private account. He advertised in 43 channels, including Discovery and National Geographic. And everybody took his advertisement, long 1 hour advertisement. And in 3 months of operation, he could buy a big chain of 5-star hotels because people paid money like anything. While I was in hiding as many people would know, for 2 months after this miracle exposure. From the hiding place, I would go to television studios. I was handling a lot of interesting things. And this guy was challenged in television programs continuously. And every day his collection was more than something like 500,000 rupees or something like that every day, which by the time I end up, the campaign, it has come down to 1,000 or 2,000 rupees. His career is over. But more people come, like the avatar of Vishnu, who claims that he is the 10th avatar, incarnation of the God. And people give a lot of money, and he has 2 centers coming out. One, a 12-storied building in Bangalore, and another, a 7-storied building in Chennai. But not like that only. Look at this picture. Here's a holy man standing on a little girl. 2 years back, I took this photograph from my mobile phone. Somebody announced this thing that this is happening, and I just went there and I found that little kids are brought by parents to this holy man, and he would stand on them because they believe that when he stands and screams some mantras, they are blessed. Next day, I come in the national television and discuss this matter on a live television program. And online, we telephone the parliament member from this area. He says, I cannot interfere because it's a matter of faith. Or then we telephone the health minister of the state. He says, no, it's religion, I cannot touch. But of course, we get the child welfare department and get this guy arrested. Now it's not happening. But India is, generally, this is one thing I'm always worried about. It's exoticized. The real India has a lot of actual dirty problems which you have to address there. But it's exoticized as a great thing, as flying fakirs and the naked babas running into the Kumbh Mela festival, which is celebrated all over the world as a great event. But look at these kind of people. They're psychopaths, charlatans, but they are seen as the face of India. Or the furious holy men who are willing to kill anybody because they belong to different religion. Or people, tantrics everywhere working on skulls and all. These kind of things are very active in India. Or people selling their children for tantric sacrifice. Just tantrics everywhere they are there. But we counter it. This is not a tantric, but a student who is trained to replicate what the gurus would do. In fact, I have trained them. And if the guru can just burn something in their mouth, my boys, all those people whom I have trained, they can also do the same thing. 1995, we decided, I've trained a lot of people. I've been working on this thing for quite some time. And with 18 people, we make a road show in 1995, which became a very big event at that time, because we went into 1,000 villages. It took nearly 1.5 years of the work. We just went in places and reached 1,000 villages in 100 districts in India. We thought that was one of the best possible communication. We went we had a hired van, of course not hired, somebody has given us only petrol we had to buy, and took money from people as donation and went to all these villages and talked to people, shown them the local miracle, explained them how these kind of things work. And it was reported very well. This is from a documentary made about my trip, made by BBC, and the documentary was a 3-episode one shown in BBC. It was called the Guru Busters, like the Ghostbusters. This is a poster from that thing. But that was 1995. We have now trained a lot of people to do these things. For example, to walk over the fire. The gurus in temples is done. Here you can see me encouraging this guy. He's a rationalist walking on the fire. Because not by telling, people don't understand. We have to show them. That's our experience. And we try it. But not only in villages. This is the National Science Center. I convinced the director for a special course there to train students. Every year I train 300 students there to explain the science behind the miracles. But one condition, each student has to take an oath that she would go back or he would go back and train at least 10 more people and show it in the school. So which means at least 5,000-6,000 students are trained in doing this thing every year. And this program is supported by the Science and Technology Ministry. I'm a resource person of the National Science Center. Look at one side of the whole thing. I'm promoted by Government of India to educate the science behind miracles. And I'm a resource person of the National Science Center. But at the same time, if I do that thing, there are laws in India where I can be stopped. These young boys and girls go to villages along with our team. And of course, it's reported all around the world, here recently also. Even now, occasionally, I don't do it nowadays because I have a lot of young people doing it. I still do a thing because we have developed a new technique, normally the rationalist reality theatre. You know what it means? One major problem of reason is, reason does not work always. That works only with intelligent people. If you reason out things to a person who is blinded with his belief, he would just block. No, he would not accept anything. Absolutely refuse to accept it. If he believes that on 21st of December, world is going to end, and when it does not end on 22nd, don't think that these people who believed it would change their mind. They would rather become more stiff. An argument against any kind of document or evidence that this was an absurd belief, and the more reasoning you give, the more blocking they would develop. This is known as cognitive dissonance. That's a psychological problem, that reasoning is blocked by your mind because you are afraid to think. People are afraid, generally, to think. That is why we generally feel that the majority of the Indian population live in fear of auspicious time and inauspicious time, of astrologers, holy men, tantrics, their power, or witchcraft. They are completely terrified. So how can we take out this fear? And without knowing, we developed a technique, and where cognitive dissonance can be broken. That's a lot of articles came about that recently. We didn't actually know that we are breaking cognitive dissonance. What we do would be, we go to a village, one of our trained volunteers would dress up like a holy man, and then he does all the things that a holy man would do, like lying on a nail bed or producing holy ash or spit fire or anything. And at the evening, he would say that, I want to make a temple here, give money, bring your gold. All the women would run back to bring their gold and money. That moment, a young boy or girl would challenge him and try to replicate everything that he does. People are panic and afraid. And when they're completely afraid and terrified with the conflict that is emerging, the guru would take off his wig. Then the music is played so lightly. So then there is a surprise and people just laugh. And this laughing moment is the point where cognitive dissonance is broken, because fear is taken out. And this is so successful. And I didn't know it that, we are actually breaking cognitive dissonance when we develop this thing. But later I found so many articles in psychological journals and all. This is one of the best techniques that one can break cognitive dissonance. But we have developed it, and there are hundreds of volunteers doing it repeatedly, and it's working so well. I myself personally attend sometimes and produce holy ash and give to people and all. This is another very famous television program, but in 1995 I've been traveling from villages to villages. These years I'm traveling from television studio to television studio, talking to millions of people directly. But sometimes it can be very interesting, like this holy man who claimed to be the most powerful tántric. Tántric is a person who can control worlds with the magical words. He claimed he could kill anybody with his mantras. And he's an advisor of astrology to at least one of the cabinet ministers of India. And when he claimed in a program that he can kill anybody, live program, and millions of people are watching it. I thought it's very difficult to convince people. Any kind of argument would not work in such a moment. At that moment, a flash came in my mind. I said, okay, if that's correct, just kill me. This moment, I challenge you, just kill me. And this guy first of all, he refused to accept that thing. But I insisted and I provoked him. Sometimes I'm very good at provoking people. And he got completely provoked and he started chanting mantras against me to kill me. He tried for first 30 minutes was the program, and I don't die in 30 minutes, of course. And then the channel, they were very clever. They said, breaking news. Will Sanal Edamaruku die in the next 1 hour? And they continue. The guy, it's a very interesting program which went on 3 hours, but in YouTube you get 12 minutes in 3 units of 4 minutes. He shakes my head and all because he wanted to somehow knock me down. And asked me how it is. I said, good head massaging. And but half the program he became so angry, and he said, bring a knife. I thought that's the end, because because
Lo iba a conseguir.
but I cannot show my, the knife is a real thing. Not like mantra. Mantra would not work, but the knife would work. Then I made a comment that I said, that's a conventional way of killing. You have been speaking about mantra killing. So he played the knife in front of my eyes and neck and all to scare me. I knew that, that's the intention, and I laughed and laughed. And well, he got tired completely after 3 hours. 3 hours it went on. And at the end he said, look, I'm sure of one thing. Because in India there are so many gods. You are protected by some other gods. The gods I have been trying to win through my mantras are some. I said, see, look, I am an atheist. I don't believe in any god. Simple like that. He said, okay, in that case, there's an ultimate destruction ceremony. Today is Friday, and you have to come to the burial ground at 11 o'clock. And 1 hour, you should sit in front of me. And in between, I have 9 minutes. And it's unreversible. Once the process is on, it's not reversible. Therefore, don't come for that thing, he wants. I said, no, I come, no problem. Then he said, first 3 minutes, you get crazy. Second 3 minutes you get unconscious. Next 3 minutes you die. Are you willing to die? I said, I don't die, we will try. Okay, then the plan is made, and that same night I would go to a burial ground and do this thing. The channel decided to sell the program so well. They advertised in all possible television channels, will Sanal Edamaruku survive this night? Watch he meeting the most powerful tantric. Of course, many people think that I got a lot of money out of this program. I didn't get anything. Rather, they gifted me a fine mobile phone only at the end of the whole thing. But they must have got quite a lot of money, because that got the highest ever viewership in Indian television history. 58% of the national viewership. He tried, you can see it in YouTube, he makes a little dough and stab it and burn it and boil it and spit on it and put under his shoes, and then put a lot of ghee on that thing and put on the fire, and a lot of people sitting and chanting mantras. If anybody has an iota of fear in his mind, he would faint unconscious. That kind of an atmosphere created. But I was well prepared. I only knew that he should not use poison against me, because now he got time, 5 hours. So I consulted with toxic experts that if poison is used, how to counter it. Like they said, they warned me, potassium cyanide can be brought to your lips, or chloroform can be brought to your nose. So many possibilities. No mantra would work, but these kind of things can work. But I've been very careful to handle that thing. But at the end of the whole program, I stand up and clap the hand, and the lights are focused on me, and that night I'm sure millions of people got out of fear. That's probably what we are trying to do. But this is the ultimate destruction ceremony going on. But not always things are that successful. This is a miracle that happened in Mumbai this year. This is a statue of Jesus Christ. And here, he was weeping, but the tears would come down and it was dropping from the feet. And driplets of water were coming from the feet, was very clearly seen. The church apparently did not understand what was happening, but they suddenly started collecting this water, and they started distributing this water, claiming that this is holy water. And some people came out telling that a person who had cancer for a long years got suddenly cured with this water. Come out in a television and say that thing. On 5th of March, 5 years after this miracle started, one television channel made a big report about the whole thing, a 1-hour report. And the representatives of the church are defending so vehemently that this is a miracle. And they say that a lot of people are cured. They've applied for a status of miracle in Vatican already. The process is already on, and the bishop is writing that to Vatican already. But in a television studio in Delhi, I tried to explain that a statue would not release water. It needs some water source in that thing. No, they say that, but you rationalists insist on empirical evidence. And you don't have an empirical evidence without actually verifying. Why don't you come to Mumbai and verify it? I took the challenge. I went to Mumbai 5 days later. And I wanted to see what was it. And the first thing, when I went there, the prayer was going on. And halfway, they stopped the prayer, and the assistant priest would distribute the water in a spoon to everybody on their palm, and people would just lick it, so tasty. And brought to me also, I didn't, in fact. And I was watching the area, and after the prayer, I started verifying. I found that the wall behind the place was completely wet, and there was algae. Means there was water presence. Top there is no water. Some water was coming from down, is very clear, on a cemented wall. And I looked at another wall here, and here is this crucifix. And here also there is water presence, and algae is there. Then I went behind and found that there was a toilet behind the area, some 20 feet away, and there was a water source at the top. And then there is a drainage line going on, which would go on almost an open drainage, a pipeline. It's covered with stone coverage, and it's very bad plumbing. And of course, the water was going down under the statue to the main drainage line. So then I opened it, and I found it was full of dirty water, stinking like anything. It was toilet water coming from the real toilet, because that was the drainage line, and unbearably, you would faint with stinking. And this water was there for so many days apparently, that's why it was stinking like that. And from there, water has a property which, when it is not allowed to go further forward, it climbs through small pores everywhere, which is known as capillary action. And that's why when in a toilet, for example, if water is blocked, it climbs on the wall immediately. Or in a rainy season, it climbs on the walls outside. So the same principle works. It climbs on the wall, it climbs on the cemented base of the crucifix also. And then I thought I wanted to see it once again closely. I went outside. And here, I went and touched this part. If the water is coming from the tears, from the top, it should be wet here. It was not wet above the feet. It was all dry. But here, this nail was very wet. Means the water got trapped inside the crucifix, and it drained out through this hole here because it was open here, and it simply came from here and fallen down. And I touched with my finger, and I smelt it. It was really stinky, that same water. And that was the water which they put in people's palm and asked them to lick and drink. And people were drinking it. And I came out, and they said I should explain to people. Sitting with folded head is the priest, to whom I said, this is toilet water. He is just putting his head. He's the priest of this church. But I didn't explain it to the public, because if I explain it to the public there, they may attack me at that time. I said I would rather explain it in the television program in the evening. When I reached the television program, I got 10 minutes to explain it properly, and the explanation was so successful. The next day, the church cleaned the drainage, and the miracle ended, water stopped. And of course, after it was public that it was dirty toilet water which was being given, nobody wanted to go there. 1,000 people average were going there every day. Nobody wanted to go anymore to collect the holy water. Miracle was over. But in the subsequent 1 hour in the television discussion, the church representatives have been so angrily talking to me. They've been so furious because the miracle is over. They wanted to make this as a great pilgrimage center. And I just stopped the whole prospect of the whole thing. This is not what they wanted. In the program, they shout at me and say that you will be accused by a lot of complaints and you would not see sunlight again because you have insulted our religion. I said, I didn't insult your religion. I don't believe in a religion, but why should I insult somebody's religion? I say that it's absurd. That's another thing. I don't believe it. But I never made a hatred speech in my life. I've been in public field educating people for more than 30 years now, or more than that. And never in my life I was accused of any hatred speech. Rather, I was a darling of people in many places. But I would explain it, 2 minutes more, in a television discussion where the bishop himself comes later. And he argues that, first of all, he says that I'm ignorant. Why? Because in Europe, it was the Catholic Church that has developed science and technology, he says. I laugh at that thing, and I said that I would counter it with two witnesses from history. One would be Gennaro Bruno, whom you have burned some years back, 400 years back. Second person would be Galileo Galilei, who has been in prison for 12 years. Then the bishop said, do you know that Galileo, at the end of the day, he has apologized. Therefore, you have to apologize too now. I said, for what? Because you have insulted our religion, you have challenged our faith. I said, I don't apologize. You will see the consequence, and he walks off the program. The consequence I got the next day, 17 complaints were made against me at different police stations. There is a law which was meant for something else. 1860s this law was made, and where anybody with malicious intention hurts the sentiment of some people, they can be arrested, and there can be, if convicted, can have 3 years imprisonment. But more than that, without an arrest warrant, you can be arrested. It's cognitive, like murder or treason. You don't have to be brought to, till the case is registered, you need not to be produced to a magistrate. You can just be arrested and put in prison. Second thing, it's non-bailable. You don't get a bail. So what's the remedy? The only remedy that my lawyer said is that go for an anticipatory bail. And I go for an anticipatory bail application. It was rejected by Delhi High Court. On technical grounds, nobody wanted to take the responsibility. Try to go in Mumbai and try it there. Because a battery of lawyers from the church are sitting on the other side. At Mumbai High Court, I go, they say that, yes, on the merits you would be correct. I would give an anticipatory bail, but first go to the lower court. Which means, practically, the moment it's rejected, I can be arrested. I go in, to a safe house at a friend's place. From there, of course, I was going to television channels and all. That's another story, that how I survived 2 months with a popular face, how I could live without public notice for 2 months. Sometimes in the university hostel, sometimes a lot of interesting techniques were there. And when the second anticipatory bail was rejected, it was very clear that I would be just picked up by police, and I would just go to prison without a trial, and I would not have any opportunity further. I asked my lawyers to go for a lower court application again. Meantime, I traveled to Europe because I had a lecture tour in Poland coming up. But during my lecture tour, on 14th of July, French Revolution's anniversary, the Liberty Day, I hear that police was at my apartment to arrest me. Yeah. So now it's discussed in India, all televisions and everywhere it's discussed. A lot of people are arguing for me. There are so many articles are coming. Now the bishops are in discussion also about this thing. They are cornered with this thing. Now the bishop came out, Archbishop, said that, well, we are willing to withdraw the case, they say. But let him apologize for it, for what he has done. And my answer was very clear. There are people who have strong convictions and who stand for reality and facts and who are not afraid of the consequences, and I'm one amongst them. I don't apologize. I don't apologize. So it remains static now. I travel all around Europe and talk to people, mobilize public opinion, and part of that is my visit here. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Sanal. No tenemos tiempo para abrir un turno de preguntas. De todas formas, hoy teníamos el formato de... ¿Sí? Es que vamos, la fundación cierra a las 8, son las 8:30. Nos habéis dicho que... ¿Tenemos o no tenemos tiempo? Vale. Bueno, pues de todas formas, eso es un formato de conferencia, así que si alguien tiene... Sería entonces preguntas. Por favor, que no sean intervenciones. Si alguien tiene preguntas, algo que quiera que nos complete, dale al botón.
Por si no,
dale al botón, si no se escucha. No, ese no, el azul grande.
¿Funciona?
El azul. Ah, este. Por si no me da tiempo después, queríamos dar las gracias a las traductoras de ECOS y también a la Universidad Euroárabe y
Fundación
Euroárabe por habernos dejado que utilicemos el salón. Y no queremos darle las gracias a los periodistas que nos han interesado lo más mínimo, probablemente porque tenía que haberse anunciado como el maestro Sanal Edamaruku va a hacer levitar a todos los asistentes.
Muchas gracias por estar aquí. Rápidamente le quería preguntar. Sí. Rápidamente quería preguntarle qué interés tiene la clase política en India para financiar tantas religiones, tantos santones y no para financiar, por ejemplo, la investigación científica que... A ver, ¿se oye o no? Sí. Y no para financiar... ¿Me escuchas? Sí. ¿Qué interés puede tener la clase política en India para financiar este tipo de personajes o religiones y no, por ejemplo, para financiar la investigación científica, que es lo que va a promover un crecimiento económico en la India como potencia que creo que está siendo ahora mismo, ¿no? O que va a emerger, simplemente?
¿Alguna pregunta más para hacer la ronda, recogerla? Porque es que vamos por ahí ya, perdón.
La mía es muy cortita. Solamente querría saber, estos santones, ¿con qué religión se identifican? ¿Con una religión, por ejemplo, con el hinduismo? Evidentemente con los musulmanes supongo que no, con los jansenistas, es decir, con todas estas religiones. Me gustaría saber si hay con una en concreto, o en fin, que me hablan un poco de eso. Gracias.
Pues se responde.
Yeah, I'll answer these two questions first of all. These holy men now come from all different religions. Many of these people whom you have seen, like Sai Baba and all, they try to present themselves as beyond religions, as a new religion. We call them, we try to see that the traditional religion in India is in decline. Hinduism, for example, is in decline. But a new cult of religion is emerging, which we call as a neo-religious tendency, where the people who are frustrated with the traditional religion, who are not enough, satisfying them, they're shifting